Hi, Subhro. Welcome to the session. Hello, everybody. Thanks for being here. So
Hey, hi
today's
Abhyuday.
session, hi. Today's session is going to be on opportunities that lawyers have in business roles, and also we're going to look at what a lawyer can do working in the venture space, not as a deal lawyer, something that a lot of you who are corporate lawyers may be familiar with, but from the side of the business guy, from the side of the technical person. Okay, from a technical role perspective, what from a business roles perspective, a lawyer's role and the career opportunities that lawyers have in that area. Shubro's got a long experience with that, and I will invite him to share his experiences. But the reason I want to point this out is because a lot of us think that if we have to move to venture capital side from deal lawyering, then it's going to require us to be investment bankers. It should require us to know a lot of math, and maybe we're not the best fit as lawyers to do that. So I'm going to have those questions be directed at Subro for his insights. Okay. And Subro, it'll be great if you can start with sharing a quick brief about your background. I think a lot of the people may know about you. We've also
Sure.
shared a small poster where they'll have a background about you. But please feel free to give us a background about your work, your connect with being in a business role as a lawyer, all of that. Just if you can give a brief background and then we can proceed further.
Sure. So, first of all, thanks, Abhyuday. Really appreciate the fact that you invited me for this one. So, to give you a brief background, I graduated from HNLU, which is the National Law School in Raipur, in 2016. Briefly worked in law firms in Mumbai and Bangalore. Uh, Primarily worked on venture and M&A. So that was one of the sort of key driving factors which helped me get into like a venture investing role. Post my stint as a lawyer, the last firm I worked for is a firm called Indus Law in Bangalore. I worked with their VC team.
Your first job was with Jerome Merchant,
It was with Jerome Merchant and Partners. At
right?
that time, it was called PNC Legal. This is with Vishnu Jerome.
Right.
Is a big partner, so work with him. From there to Indus, and from Indus to so at that time there's a early stage fund in Bangalore called Kalari Capital. So they had started a fellowship program, which was sort of like their analyst program. So joined that analyst program, was there for a year. Recently, around 8 months back, joined a late stage startup called Udan.com. Udan is a B2B e-com startup, valued at around $3 billion odd dollars, backed by the likes of GGV, Tencent. I work with a team called the Strategic Investments team. So internally within Udan, we help Udan invest in companies which strategically align with our goals. We also help them acquire companies which align with our goals. Also help with new businesses that Udan wants to start. So work on investing plus strategy along with the founders at Udan. So that's a background about the work that I do as of today.
That's great. So you had two corporate lawyer roles where you
Yeah,
were a deal lawyer,
correct.
and then you used that to move uh, outside of law and into business roles.
Right, right.
Okay, and you also founded a community called Lawyers Not Lawyering,
Yes.
which is very huge and which has people who have varied experiences. They're all from different law schools in the country. A lot of them have done MBAs, LLMs, and moved out of law into other areas.
Right,
And
right,
and when I was speaking to you, you shared with me how you spoke to over 100 people to sort of learn more about the options for
right.
lawyers to move out of law. So would you like to say something about that also?
Right. So I think now. So basically, when you cover a long distance as a sort of non-lawyer, the thing is, it starts to appear like rocket science. Ki, oh God, like how
Mm-hmm.
do you sort of get to where you are today? But the thing is, the fundamentals are the same. So the day I wanted to quit law, I literally opened LinkedIn, started like searching for people who are like lawyers, also VCs, lawyers, also investment bankers. I found, I mean, it's as simple as like I did my own
Yeah.
lead generation,
Yeah.
collected 100 odd names, sent them messages like on LinkedIn and got on calls with them. And
These
I
are lawyers who moved out of law.
yeah, these are lawyers who had moved out of law, and most of them were very kind. Abhilasha, who I co-founded the group with, who is doing her MBA in Canada right now, she was at Deloitte at that time doing management consulting, and she was like one of the few lawyers I knew. Naya, who founded Baby Chakra, she was ex-McKinsey. She had founded a company, ex-Howard Business School. The founders at Spot Draft, seniors from college. So everyone basically who was outside that law circle.
Okay, Spot Draft founders are your seniors from college.
Right. Shashank is like a super senior from college. Not that he was in college at the same time, but in fact, I had a couple of juniors who were working in Spot Draft. Spoke to them. So basically, and the bigger thing was that, let's say, my law school itself didn't have a lot of people who had moved out of law. It was mostly in like NLS, Nalsar, or NUJS, primarily because of the number of years these law schools had existed, right?
Right.
So it required to network across law schools, in fact, sometimes across countries, right? Like a lot of people were not even in India, like Akshay, for example, Akshay BD, who was in Uber at that time. He headed public policy at Uber. He has started a fund now in Berlin, ex-lawyer, and he lived Delhi. He's a 2008 grad. He was in, I think, in the US at that time, and thankfully came to India, spoke to him during that time. So I think the basic process remains the same. Like if you want to do something, I still find that the easiest way to do it is to speak to people who have done it before. So, in fact, Ramanuj, for example, I think we have not interacted a lot. I mean, one or two phone calls, but Ramanuj, for example, I have had very, very long conversations with on like how your business has worked and, you know, how did you guys start? So all of that gave a lot of perspective to help towards, you know, making the shift.
That's great. So, right. I have a take on this, on what you do, okay? And I want to throw that open in the conversation. So, what a lot of people say is that, I know a lot of lawyers who say that, okay, I don't know how I ended up in law. And after they see work at a corporate law firm, they're like, this is definitely not what I want to do. Okay.
Correct.
And for various reasons, there will be a resentment for why they are at law. They're doing law because there's only one side of law they've seen, which is maybe working as a corporate law firm or as a litigator or as an in-house counsel, and that's kind of the model we all live in. So for them, it's like there's no hope for law. Lawyers charge too much. They don't understand what clients want, and there is very little scope for innovation in law. So the natural outcome is that they want to move out of law. That's what they call it. However, I have a very different take on it, which is that you are moving out of law for sure. But I think that this is the birth of a new kind of lawyering, which is needed in the world and in the country as of today. And it's not that, you're the first new lawyer that has come into existence. If you talk to somebody who is maybe born in the 60s or 70s, they will tell you, or 50s, so they'll be very senior. But if you talk to those people, they'll tell you that what lawyering was actually what it was to be a barrister, go to court and argue.
Right.
And if you talk to my dad, he will say that corporate law is not exactly law. Like it's not the core of lawyering where you get to argue in a court, think of intellectual arguments. All you're saying is reading, interpreting regulations, advising clients, and then structuring a deal. What's the big deal? Like even if you're negotiating, it's about the price after all, right? So he's not able to see a commercial deal in the way a lawyer now sees. A commercial lawyer perceives it as lawyering. For a lawyer of today's generation, this is very much what law is about. But for his generation, it's not. And similarly, going forward, and in the stage that we are in today, there are so many new meanings and new career opportunities that will arise for lawyers. Now, we can say that this is non-law. But I feel sometimes that, that's why we say that not moving, we didn't call it moving out of law in so much terms, but we said going into business roles. Why am I saying that? Because if you say you're moving out of law, it's like closing a bad chapter of your life. Okay. And I've seen a lot of people who want to think of that and they do not see the bright side of law. And what I am saying is
so I sort of want to add one thing over here. I think, as a junior in any profession, right? Like in a 2.5 years, when you move into any profession, there's obviously that distaste with the profession because you're like, I'm doing all the grunt work, which you will do for a very long period of time. I mean, the first 5 years in no profession is, the greatest deal making of your life because that's not how it works. You don't know how to deal make. So they can't let you do it. In fact, you should be happy that they are actually paying you to learn, so that there should be some happiness related to that. And you have to spend time on whatever you love. For me, I mean, for some time it was, I didn't even have a very clear idea about what I want to do. It was around venture startups that I want to do something around it, right? Maybe start something on my own, etc., etc. You have to give it that time. So basically, what happens is, after I made the shift, a lot of people call me up and then say, "Acha, venture capital karna hai." But it is like ask, and that's only because they're like, I want to get out of law and I want to do venture capital because there's this new good term that I've heard. But the thing is, A, do you know what venture capital is? Do you love that enough to be able to give it 10 years of your life to understand what to do exactly? So whatever you do, you have to give it those 10 years. I mean, it's that same outliers, Malcolm Gladwell's of theory. You have to give it those 10,000 hours.
You're
Of
saying that whatever you decide to do, you've got to give it those 10 years and initially be ready for the grind.
Yeah. So like one thing that you said in the beginning, right, is like, something getting out of law. Let's say you get out of law and you want to become a marketing person or a sales person or a investor for that matter, or a banker for that matter. Does that mean, oh, because I'm a lawyer, I don't need to know math, or like, do you need to know math? The thing is, whatever it requires, you will have to learn.
That's
It is not because, not as if because you're a lawyer or you went to a, top tier law school or whatever it is, you are not sort of omitted from that list. If you want to become a banker tomorrow, you'll have to learn how to value things. You'll have to learn how to do financial modeling. Like the grunt will be there. You cannot go and start lecturing from day one.
What about the thought that, कि कोई बंदा IIT से आया है तो he's a better mathematician, he's better placed to do this than me. Somebody who's done CFA is better placed to do this than me. A lot of lawyers tend to think like that, that why I did law for 5 years. There are both sides of lawyers. One set of lawyers who want to complete a bad chapter, another set of lawyers who say, I've done law for 5 years, but then what use is my degree if what I'm doing is math, and somebody else who's placed better to do maths than me, then what should I be doing this? That's the question that comes up for them.
No, there are arguments on both sides, right? First, the question of should I be doing it? You are doing it because you like doing it, right? I mean, not because you studied something in your undergrad. Right? I do it because I really like the world of startups and the things that happen in it. And like, it has nothing to do with my undergrad degree, first of all. Secondly, is a person from IIT, first of all, so this is the problem, right? People say, math hai. What math is this? Does it require you to do like, quadratic equations and like calculus? No, it doesn't. It requires you to understand what a balance sheet is. Ab uske liye, do you need to go to IIT? Most likely not.
Yeah, exactly.
IIT guy do better like, better like calculus than you? Most likely, yes. But does this require calculus? No. Right? So for example, if you ask me, can you do like higher, like, can you man trading desk of a Goldman Sachs? Most likely not, because that actually requires a lot higher level of like modeling or a higher level of mathematical understanding, which you have to do in a short period of time. But something like venture capital actually doesn't require that level of mathematical understanding.
Right.
You have to actually, so that is where my first point is that, I feel that career choices are not made with a lot of depth, right? In fact, the people who have a distaste with law or say, I don't like law, I feel, hey, you know what? You don't like law. Okay, fine. But the thing is, the next thing you're doing, do not choose that blindly as well.
Also, what do you know enough about law already?
That's also true. That's number one. Do you know enough about law to actually not like it?
And how do you decide when a situation is such that the law, what the law means and what work a lawyer is expected to do is
correct. Today? No, I see. I agree with the fact that some people have a fascination with something like tomorrow. If someone wants to say, I want to become a professional cricketer and not do what I studied in my undergrad. Okay, I understand to a certain degree. But the thing is, even that next choice has to be well informed. Basically, every choice needs to be well informed. It cannot be an arbitrary choice. So basically, the reason I did those 100 calls was because at some level, I didn't want to make an arbitrary choice. You cannot make choices unless you have information. So you have to gather information and no one is going to serve it. So basically, someone who knows about startups cannot tell you the details of the intricacies of the day-to-day life of basically a startup guy, right? I mean, so today you run a startup for the past 5 years. The day-to-day workings of a startup or running your own organization, that tension at the end of the month when you don't know where the money is going to come from, that cannot be understood by reading a book or by having 2 phone calls. You have to sit within that circle. You have to speak to them. You have to get the meat of the basically that community before you decide to join it. It's as
Correct.
simple. Yeah.
Correct. So I just thanks Shupro. That's very very
Yeah.
useful. And what I want to do is that I want to move forward with where you are. But the thing is, I just want to wrap up one part of the conversation, which is that when you're saying, when everybody, when we are saying that we are moving out of law, we can't say that for sure. It's just that what we are being is not a transactional lawyer, and we are not being a general counsel or an in-house counsel, and we're
Hmm.
not being a litigator, but we're moving
Right.
into a business role. But it might very well mean that we are actually using the skills we acquired as a lawyer, and it could very well mean that today we are going to do what a lawyer does. For example, what a lawyer will do in the coming 5 years. Because, for example, you can look at any industry. You can look at reg tech, fintech, okay, any of these areas. If you look at, they are highly regulated, and you will need a lawyer to work in business roles also. And we're not even
Right.
getting into that complex roles. We're getting into a simple role like venture investing, which has existed. And reg tech and fintech, may you'll understand that there will be a cusp of people, a set of people needed who have the right mix of skills between, let's say, a math and a data science and law or something like that. But
Right.
imagine a role as simple as venture capital, which has existed like since 1970s in the way that we know things. Okay,
Right.
so even in venture capital, there are roles that lawyers can take up, and where you will not be in a position that is inferior to anybody else. And the simplest way to understand this is to look at it this way: that as a lawyer, our first job is to solve a problem. Okay, and to solve that problem, we do this when we analyze provisions of statutes, when we read judgments, and we find answers to situations. So that is the point, that is the part of the skill that is needed most as a lawyer, and which we will always have: the skill of writing and communication also, and of having a clear argument about how to move forward. So
Right.
this skill is used, and we have to just identify what is the problem worth solving. The only thing is that the problems worth solving today will no longer require contracts or petitions alone. They will require strange things like Excel sheets, which are reviewed by a lawyer, business process model diagrams that are reviewed by lawyers, presentations that are reviewed and created by lawyers, and
Right.
maybe educational trainings that are conducted by lawyers. Like, this is where I want to just, like, start into the next part of the session, where we have a conversation with Subro about his experiences as a venture capital. What do I call you?
Investor.
Venture capital investor.
Yeah.
Okay.
Uh,
So, Rajshekharan, I'm sorry about today. We did not have a 300 member pack available because we're full with the others. So we will do that from next time. Okay. Yeah. So, Shubro, let's move into that. And also,
yeah.
I'll keep an eye out on the side on the questions people are asking. So we will dive into
Sure.
that. So
Sure.
now,
Sure.
now it'll be great to know about. Also, the other thing that we want to discuss in this conversation is the method you use to identify what you want to do next, which
Right.
was to interview 100 different people. Now, this as a skill is not learned by us in law school.
Correct.
We
Correct.
do not ever learn that when you got a problem, or when you're trying to figure out, when you're doing research about something, go talk to people. And the
Right.
skill you used was like interviewing or informational interviewing. It wasn't exactly a survey to come up with a thesis, but it was more like interviewing and identifying some important decision making points without
Right.
having a full blown technical MBA style survey.
Right.
Okay, so that will be something that would be great to figure out in the third part of the session. So
Correct.
starting with, how did you zero in on venture capital and what it is to be a venture capital
Right.
lawyer versus a venture capital investor?
Sure. So I think so. My work in the first two law firms that I worked in largely involved venture deals. In fact, I moved to Bangalore to be closer to venture as an industry, and because Indus was doing some great venture capital work. So I worked as a VC lawyer. In fact, so that's why I did know people in the industry. I did have an understanding of how the process works. I did understand the process of fundraising by early stage startups. Yes, I didn't. So, okay, think of investing as a process, or any business transaction as a process. A lawyer generally comes in at the end of it during the execution side of things. Prior to that, everything is done by a banker or like the business folks. So while I had an idea about the execution side of things, I wanted to learn more about how did we get to execution. right? Now, having a knowledge about execution gives you an entry into the door, right? I'm better than an IIT fresher because I understand how does deal documentation work. It's as simple as that. So when I went for now the good parts and where the sort of world came together to make it happen was like when I went to the Kalari interview. So Kalari was an Indus client. So I had already seen these people, or they knew about the firm, I knew about them. They had that comfort that you come from XYZ firm, and we have dealt with them in the past. The good part is law firms most likely deal with your next employer. So that's a great way to leverage that connection, right? Because they all
Hmm.
have that comfort. Okay, this organization generates X quality of work. So it's fairly simple that way because it is a lot about. So what is IIT, right? IIT is a proxy for quality, right? IIT is saying that this person comes from X college and hence there is a proxy for quality. AZB can be the same. Amarchand can be the same. Any law firm can be the same. Any national law school can be the same. You have to find out a proxy. I'm not saying it has to be a name brand proxy, but you have to find a proxy. It can be an online course that you have done. It can be knowledge in a particular subject, can be articles you have written. So it's basically from starting to focus to I don't know this. Why don't you focus on I know these parts and this is where I can add value, and no one else my age will generally have this exposure. I think as a lawyer, that's a great thing, right? In the first 2 years of your career, you're mostly dealing with promoters of companies. Very few people at that age would be dealing with promoters of companies. So that is a fairly big deal. So you get that comfort to the table. Now, I think I divulged a bit. So how did I decide on going into venture capital? I think for me, the choice was fairly clear in the sense I wanted to start something on my own. I didn't know enough about businesses. I figured, okay, how do I learn more about businesses while, maybe from a distance, or more about understanding which business to get into. Venture seemed to be a very good way to do it because I was looking at maybe 50 businesses in a month. So rather than sticking to one particular business, allows me to get exposure to like multitude of businesses. So that was the reason I sort of got into it. If do people understand what venture capital is or how it works? Should I give a background on that? Will that help?
You can, but they've asked some questions, so let's address
Right,
it from
right.
that perspective. Okay, like when
Sure.
Swastik has asked on what are prerequisite things to know for moving into venture capital and investments, and what are the laws involved. So when you explain this, you can deal with the lawyer side of things and the non-lawyer side of things. One second.
Right, right.
Rashna, your question was being answered by Subhro when he said you've asked when can a lawyer leverage law firm experience while applying for a commercial role. So what Subhro did was, one is that he could already know about the kind of the next kind of potential recruiter because he was doing transactions for that client at the law firm. And next, what is not addressed is, of course, how else can we leverage our law firm experience, and what are the other commercial roles that lawyers are best suited for, okay, in the M&A
Uh,
and PE space.
okay, so basically, when you talk about, let's say, investing M&A PE,
Hmm.
what are the roles available, first of all?
Hmm.
So, one is an investing, so there are buy side roles and there are sell side roles.
Hmm.
Buy side roles are basically where you are buying an asset. So, for example, venture investing and we want private equity investing, which is basically the check size keeps increasing. So, venture and private equity invest are two roles. And on the sell side, you can have investment banking. Are suited to do this? Yes. What are the skills that are required in addition to being a lawyer? Skills like a basic understanding of commerce might be a good thing to have. In the sense, once you walk into a room, if you say that I know how to read a balance sheet, that really helps your case. Like generally, the expectation is a lawyer doesn't know how to. If you know something as simple as that, which is literally one simple online course, maybe it is like it's as simple as that. So uh, basically, having some basic commercial understanding is very important. Where do lawyers feature in this? Typically, in the venture capital world, lawyers feature in the execution side of things when you are actually executing the deal. So the diligence and documentation is done by lawyers. And how do lawyers get into venture capital, or what are the roles you can find in venture capital or other like this buy side, sell side? All
On the
of them. In
industry side
fact,
of
you can be
things.
eligible. Yeah, I feel you can be eligible for all of them. In fact, there are examples. I think Abhyuday, you would know, on the community, there are enough and more people who do all of these.
Can you
And
give
in
some
fact, there's a
examples of the roles that people play in these?
For example, I know people who, so there's a very long history, in fact, of law school graduates working with Deutsche Bank as an organization,
Hmm.
as investment analysts, both in
Investment
India.
analyst, okay.
This
That's
is
one role.
public security. So investment analyst can be one role, basically where you're analyzing securities or analyzing companies for to invest in. Investment banking is so investment banking analyst, basically where you're making pitches for people to buy stock, which is a sell side role that can also be an option. I feel any early stage startup role where I think there is a requirement for 25-year-olds who can run around, that's open to everyone. You don't need it. So generalists basically. All startups have generalist roles. And as long as you can speak English, you have basic understanding of how the world works. If you come with a commercial transactional law experience, that's great. I think all of those roles are open for someone who came
You
from law
know,
school.
I think that I had briefly read the CFA books back in law school in my final year.
Right.
The CFA books explain very well what a investment banker or a trader's role is. And even if you don't do the quant
Right.
part, I don't know, a job may require you to do the quantitative part. But the
Right.
concepts and how a business person, as how a trader or a VC investor has to look at the numbers, that is explained very well.
Right.
And even in the maths
Right.
related sections or statistics related sections where they give you practice questions for practice, they are also giving you scenarios which you will be working on if you are working in a fund or in at a trading desk.
Right.
So that is
So
one tool you
I
can
want
use.
to clear I wanted to clear one part. There is no high level math involved. There are formulas, but the thing is, Microsoft Excel has all of it. So I
Yeah.
do a lot of Excel as a software, but I don't like do high level math. There is no math involved in this. I mean, I know the formula, I put in Excel and the answer comes out. So knowing Excel and knowing math are two different things. I don't know math, I know Excel. And that works, right? You don't need to know high level math for this. There's no requirement to know math. At least I mean, there's a requirement to model, which is basically there's a requirement to forecast, but that's a very different thing. That's storytelling that has very limited amount of numbers, mathematical prowess involved.
And storytelling is a research based thing and where you identify
Yeah,
and
I
where you
think
get better with things over time. Yeah. Go ahead,
yeah,
go ahead.
lawyers have a great edge in that bit, right? In the sense, two things: attention to detail, and basically analysis within a short period of time, given limited information. I think lawyers do that very well.
Yeah.
The one thing that you might want to develop is creativity,
Yeah.
because
Building a
lawyers,
narrative is something that lawyers know how to
uh,
develop, but
yeah,
reading up
building a
and
narrative.
analyzing they can do.
Yeah, I think that lawyers are very good at.
Yeah. Okay.
So that I don't think
Hmm.
there's anything to ask for.
Right. So you
Yeah,
explained two kinds of roles: investment analyst for recommendations for investment in listed securities.
right.
Then you said investment banking.
Yeah.
Buy side में there will be in venture investing.
वेंचर हो गया, प्राइवेट इक्विटी.
Okay. What other roles are there? Any others that come to mind?
So that basically see within a fund or any company for that matter, basically there are so let's say there are investing roles, there are also operating roles, right?
Hmm.
So for
Yeah. Please explain on that. Hmm.
yeah, so for example, so when let's leaving aside venture as an industry, let's say any startup for that matter, there can be roles in communication, there can be roles in so for example, public policy as a space is coming up so well, right? And every large company today has a public policy department which sort of advises the founder on where the regulatory framework is going, or what does a government's decision mean in terms of how things should be structured at a startup. That has become a very, very important part of how companies work now. So just to give you an example, like this is someone on the group that I know, you also know. X person works in the tobacco industry, which is highly regulated, and their job primarily is to sort of guide both the government and the company on how the regulations should evolve, or how the company can work with the government. So that in itself has evolved as a very important role now in a lot of startups, where a lot of value add can be done, because the larger the company, the more important that role becomes. For example, in a late stage startup like a Flipkart, that role is exceptionally important, where your entire business is dependent on e-commerce policy, right? I mean, basically your business changes every day as and when e-commerce policy changes. So that, for example, is a very lucrative role if you have an understanding of policy as a subject. So that can be one. Otherwise, operating roles I feel in startups, as long as you're willing to invest time to learn that those one or two things and go into the depth, I feel operating roles are open all over the place, right? I mean, generalist roles genuinely do not require a degree. So I think that would be open for all lawyers.
Got it. So I have been reading some of the questions, and so I hope people are clear on the kind of roles that you can play. Now, a lot of you have asked questions about how can we learn the laws and the legal documentation involved. So
Right.
I think, guys, for that you can just take up any LawSikho course on M&A or on the securities and capital markets part. We have a couple of courses on that. So the documents that are involved let's are different for the listing side of it, and for the investment, like PE venture capital investment has different documents like your shareholders agreement, share purchase agreement, share subscription agreement, all of that. The laws involved are obviously Companies Act, FEMA. There can be the takeover code of SEBI, other SEBI regulations. So that depends on whether the company, there is a unlisted company or a listed company angle coming in, all of that. Okay, so it's going to be a long thing. It takes about an hour of work every day at your own convenience over a period of 1 year to learn the whole piece of work. Okay, so that's for the legal side of things. Similarly, at the time that a company is listing, there are various capital markets intermediaries, merchant bankers. Merchant bankers is another SEBI recognized name for investment banks. So there are various agreements with merchant bankers, depository participants, and all of them, which are undertaken. Okay, those are somewhat standardized, and you can learn about them in the securities law and capital markets course. It's a long conversation. We won't be able to finish in even like half an
Yeah,
hour. We
yeah.
won't finish that. Okay,
Right.
but feel free to reach out to me on my number or reach out to anybody in our team who can guide you on that. Okay, and they can even share some free study materials to read so that you get a sense of what are the laws involved and how things work. Now, one interesting question that Syed Asif Iqbal has asked: as an expert, how do you see the growth of legal tech in India? You've worked with VCs. How do they see legal tech? What are the limitations of being a legal tech entrepreneur or business in the process of raising funds? This is one question we'll be taking up. And the other question is, would a CA and a lawyer have a leg up in a VC role? How should someone with no work ex approach such jobs? So these two questions we'll
Right.
take up now.
Sure. So to answer, hey, hi, Syed.
Legal tech. Yeah.
So on legal tech, I think, in fact, VCs have a very open approach to legal tech, just like any other industry. The challenge is that, again, like the way lawyers approach most things, the lack of that building narrative, like you very well put. Basically, people don't see legal as a mass market. So law in India is not limited to law firms. First of all, like law in India is limited to courts. Law in India is limited to providing justice to people, and that can be a company, that can be an individual, that can be anyone for that matter, right? For some reason, legal tech guys have limited themselves to either companies as a market or basically legal services to corporates is where they have limited themselves, which is basically the law firm market, which is fairly small. No one has thought of something like, in the US, for example, there is a legal tech company which deals in traffic fines. They help you resolve traffic fines. The market size for that would be 100 times larger than, all the maybe, most corporate law transactions put together. Something as simple as that.
Guys,
So,
notice how specific it is. Okay, the market for traffic fines. Okay, nobody is
right.
saying we'll alter the justice system of US. The
हाँ
reason the
मतलब
problem is so narrowly defined is because when you think of tech, the important thing to consider is scale, and when you have scale, you can't solve 100 problems
right,
at one
right,
go. And the way lawyers think of it is that we want to solve a lot of stuff at once, and so
correct,
it's a natural impediment to scale. Not only do we
correct,
not are not used to operating in teams, you can see the size of teams in which lawyers operate versus the size of a big company. But the other thing is that if we are solving a problem, it has to be narrowly defined, like Subhro said, the traffic fine problem. Okay, and that is an example of where a legal tech opportunity could arise. Yeah, please continue. Just
So
wanted to post
basically,
it.
yeah, sure. So basically, when you think, I mean, I feel that the problem today is legal tech entrepreneurs are not able to display a large enough market size. in the sense, so understand this, right? Private investing expects like a 20x, 30x, 40x return, right? Like theoretically, because 50% of the companies are going to get bust, I'm going to make my return on, let's say, 5 of those companies. If you tell me that my market size is only limited to like $1 billion, it doesn't work. Genuinely does not work. You cannot ask for a $50 million check because based on like an idea that can only scale to $1 billion. So I feel focus on problems that are more fundamental. There's infinite, scope to sort of innovate in law, but that innovation has to be more fundamental. It cannot be limited to, oh, let's create a marketplace for lawyers. That has been done to death, and it has been done like 10 million times. Think of it, right? Legal services cannot be the greatest, sort of fundable idea on the planet simply because it's not used every day. It is not like Swiggy, right? I don't order it every day. So the market size in itself becomes very limited. So you have to approach it from a different angle. Maybe approach the spending bit of it. Maybe approach smaller problems like the traffic fine thing.
Traffic fine thing people don't approach lawyers for, right? And so this a legal tech model
Yeah,
which
so
goes to
it's
traffic, which solves this
correct.
problem, will be a direct to consumer model. Doesn't
Right.
serve the lawyers, is much more scalable, much more focused, so you can do a lot of innovation. The thing with
Right.
anything scalable is there are 100 variations of the same problem that exist. So your problem has to be very narrowly defined and targeted so that you can tackle that.
So I think just to close that question, I mean,
Yeah,
VCs have an open mind towards everything. In fact, they are way more interested.
than lawyers.
Yes, come with something that has a market size that is large enough and has practical application. It cannot be the problem with legal tech ideas. It's cocooned in a box. It's highly technical and only lawyers understand and appreciate it. No one
Yeah.
else seems to be understanding.
But think about something like SignZ, na? SignZ was by,
Right, it's a
yeah,
legal solution, but the thing is, it has a business application. The
correct,
the pitch has to be to a business, right? Something that
correct.
applies to a business. If he came in and says, "Hey, you know what? I've developed a signing solution that is compliant with XYZ Act," I don't think any VC would have appreciated that. What he came and said is, "Hey, you know what? I have developed an online signing solution, makes life easy for everyone, and 20 million businesses can use it, and this is the X amount of
And
money."
their business model earlier evolved a lot.
Right,
And later on now they have gone into products for the banking and fintech sector and
correct,
KYC,
correct,
remote
correct.
KYC and things like that.
Right.
So we'll be inviting somebody from there also to speak on this. But notice how, these are the ideas in legal tech that are actually going forward. You can call it fintech now, you can call it legal tech, but
Right.
it is like, I hope you all are getting a sense of the kind of the fact that
Basically,
VCs are
I feel
funding
that
these ideas.
the pitch has to be something which appeals to a business. Basically, the wording has to be something that appeals to a business and not lawyers appealing to other lawyers. Then it won't work, right? That's not how
Yeah,
it works. So
that was
uh,
great.
that's question number one. I think question number two was around CA and law.
CA and lawyer. So this CA and lawyer combination, either in a VC role or in one more role. Somebody asked. 1 second. Huh? Yeah, let's discuss CA plus lawyer combination in a VC role, and then we'll do a
Right.
5 minute rapid fire because there are some short questions we can discuss.
Sure, sure, sure.
Yeah.
So CA plus, just before we get into that, I mean, I don't know how many of you know this. The founder of McKinsey was a lawyer. McKinsey, the case method that McKinsey follows is actually comes from like the Harvard Law School case method.
Okay.
A16Z's managing director right now is a lawyer.
Lloyd Blankfein of Goldman Sachs was a lawyer.
Lloyd Blankfein of Goldman Sachs was a lawyer. So there are very, very famous business people who all came from a legal background.
Yeah.
So just that, I mean, I don't think they go and like sort of talk about it a lot, but there are very, very famous business guys who are all lawyers. So does a CA plus law help? Of course it does. I mean, you have an understanding of regulations plus you have an understanding of numbers and how businesses are like sort of work. So that's exceptional. I don't know how practical that is. In the sense, will you have enough time? A CA is a very rigorous course, requires 2 years of apprenticeship. I don't know how much time you will
No,
have.
they're saying after I've become a CA and a lawyer, now do I have an edge in moving to industry
Of
or
course, you
getting
will.
venture
You
capital?
have a edge in any industry. You have a edge. You can. I mean, I know private equity investors who are CA plus lawyer.
Okay.
Just to putting it that way.
And then the other question is CS plus law and MBA plus law. MBA plus law, I think you've seen insane number of
I
applications.
think MBA plus law, but see, all of these, I feel. See, I would want to answer this differently. I feel
Yeah.
before you invest either time or money in a second degree, whether it's a CA or an MBA, both of which are long, they're expensive. Please understand or have a very have a lot of clarity. Am I going to do this for the next 30 years of my life? Please have
But
that.
people don't know what they'll do after MBA. So when they are doing an MBA, I
Yeah.
think it's important for them to know that this is what an MBA plus law graduate will get. Like, will he get an operations role? What role is he
So
will he get?
right. So basically, the idea is, and my suggestion personally, I mean, the suggestion can vary. It is basically try and get relevant work experience even prior to going for an MBA. What people think is, if I have the MBA, it's easier to convince a founder ki, acha, take me on your team. I
Right,
feel, why not put that effort beforehand, get 2 years of relevant experience, and that effort can be as simple as sending a LinkedIn message, which
right,
99% of people don't do.
correct.
Write to a startup founder, 90% of the times they will reply, 50% of the times they'll say, Acha, aaja, kuch kar le.
Yeah.
Everyone needs, employees.
But
So
I still have a question. Like, there are people
yeah,
who've
yeah,
done 4 years, 6 years, 2 years of work in corporate law,
right,
and then
right.
they want to do MBA. But after that, what's there? They don't know. So can you give us some examples? You don't have to name the people, but some examples of the kind of things people can do
So
after having
basically,
done MBA from being a corporate lawyer or
so
let's say a
I
litigator.
Right. I know people who are doing marketing. I know people. So basically, I know people who have gone. So basically, lawyers have gone to maybe the best MBA schools on the planet. So I know people who have gone to Yale. I know people who have gone to
Okay,
HBS.
okay,
I know people who have gone to Booth. Everything, like name any ISBs, name any B school, lawyers have gone there.
right.
Uh, People, a lot of people are in consulting, a lot of people are investing, a lot of people have got marketing jobs. So it is not as if they are typecasted, right? All those opportunities are open to you, that like any like sort of campusing that will happen in an
So you
MBA.
said marketing role.
Right.
What else? Operations role,
So,
definitely, I think.
okay, let's think of it this way. Who are the largest recruiters on MBA campuses?
Okay,
Consulting companies,
consulting only. So consulting role.
financial, the financial houses, so either banks or like a JP Morgan or a Goldman Sachs. Or
Hmm.
so basically, those two seem to be the largest employers. Your McKinsey, Bain, BCG, Deloitte, and the big fours of the world, plus
Right.
your financial
So that's amazing.
guys. Yeah.
Okay.
So I feel that, but I would want to answer that differently. See, and people look at MBA as a deferment. People are like, "Acha,
Yeah.
MBA कर लेंगे, 20 lakh रुपए दे देंगे, तो everything will work out in life, and I'll go get a job." I don't think that's how life works. If you have to fight, why not take an online course on whatever you want to do today, learn that today, and go and sort of join a pre-MBA job, do 2 years of that. People will have a lot more respect for you. Basically, an MBA is an answer for networking. An MBA is not an answer for skill development. So in fact, like an ISB MBA is 9 months. It is not even a lot of class hours, to be very honest. I mean, basically skill development happens in real life and when you work in an organization. So fight जो मारना है वो पहले मार लो. मतलब MBA में जाके कुछ अलग नहीं होने वाला. And MBA में it will be more difficult, right? 800 people in a class and everyone is from an IIT or an IIM. Why not do it in real life? It's much easier actually. You will have a lot of connections who will in fact back you when you're going to search for that post MBA job. I know enough people in the industry now who I know I can call up if I need something, right? Do not wait for an MBA for that. You don't need an MBA for that, in fact, right? The requirement is going down by every day. Learning how to read a balance sheet does not require an MBA, for sure. It doesn't. I mean, there are other reasons to do an MBA, primarily networking, but I don't see 99% of the times you don't need an MBA. So
Right.
don't use the MBA as an excuse. अच्छा MBA होगा तो fight करेंगे उसका कोई मतलब नहीं
So
मतलब why not just
Mrityunjay, yeah, correct. Thanks, Subhro. So Mrityunjay, does your question get answered? You said that you are graduating in 2 months and you've interned at corporate law firms and big fours, but now there are no more job openings. And you work with the corporate finance team of KPMG and you have inclination towards a VC career, but you're confused about whether you should join a law firm, work there, and later change your way into VC or go for CFA or MBA or do LLM in corporate law. So, good big question. Now, what Shubhro is saying is that start with what you can right away. So if you want to directly, if you think you can work in corporate finance team of KPMG and on the side do a CFA, that would be amazing. Okay. Look at what are the decisions where you're actually deferring, getting in touch with reality. Those are the decisions to not take. Okay. In simple words, that's what Shubhro is saying. Shubhro, you can correct me or add
right?
it.
No, I think that's perfect. That's perfect, right? I mean, do not use the MBA as an excuse to not reach out to people. That will be exceptionally stupid.
Right.
MBA करने से कुछ ऐसा नहीं होगा कि मतलब people will start replying to you. It won't happen because there are enough and more MBAs right in the world. So that fight where you connect to people and where you speak to people and where you do on ground research, why do I need to spend 30 lakhs to do that? I mean, I can do that today, right? So I don't understand the philosophy behind. So yeah, and that answers the question.
Right. And some of the, so I had a question from somebody who said that as a litigator, how can we work in these areas? And Manindra has also asked that throw some light on fintech marketing opportunities for lawyers who are practicing in court. So Manindra, the question is that you want to consider moving in-house or you want to serve these clients? Both are different questions. If you want to serve these clients in litigation, then I think you have touched a gold mine, because there are very few people who have even gotten started on understanding fintech. So fintech is right now finding its way into contracts in depth and into company trainings and into business product designs. But these contracts in the next 3 to 5 years will start getting litigated, and the biggest positions of law will start emerging in India.
Right.
Abroad also there is some judgments, not a lot. So for a litigator to learn the technical aspect of things, it will be amazing. Like, you can get clients so fast. The only thing is that you need to be willing in this phase, because no disputes are coming. So you should be having a foot in the door. Ensure that you get a foot in the door, and you should be able to then advise clients basically with their trainings how things go into contracts, so that when those contracts go into disputes, you're the first person they think about.
I want to make one point over here, just but
Yeah.
what you said.
Yeah.
I feel people don't reach out to other people enough. In the sense, most
Yeah.
is actually free. In the sense, today, if you want to know about fintech, why not just call up the founder of a small fintech company and ask him, boss, how did this work out? It's as simple as that. Why do
Yeah.
you need to go do an MBA or anything for that matter, right? Most knowledge in the world is actually free. You just need to reach out to a couple of people and ask them questions, right?
Yeah.
Actually as simple as that. And today you have something like LinkedIn, so you don't even need to like search for a first degree connection and all of that. You literally can go and ask the person, how do I do this? So even
Yeah.
so, I feel inquisitiveness is low. If there are people who are saying, I'm a lawyer in fintech, how do I break into fintech as a business guy? It's as simple. Talk to your client. Talk to your client. How does the business work? How can I get into it? Where can I do value add? Speak to them. It's as simple as that.
Yeah. Namit is asking, we see increasing trend of law. So, Manindra, let us know, Mrityunjay, let us know if these your questions were answered.
Right.
Uh, Namit is asking, we see an increasing trend of lawyers pursuing CFA. Is it beneficial for PE and VC profile? So, what's your take on this, Shubhro? I'm sure that reading those books is, but giving
It
the
is, of
exam and the level
course.
of the degree, I don't know so much.
It is, of course. I mean, so basically, the idea is
Have you done it?
no, I haven't done it.
So
Uh,
it's not mandatory.
of course, it's not mandatory. See,
Got
but
it.
I tell you something. There are two ways to do it, right?
Uh,
Uh, Either you go work for a great organization or a great boss, or someone who can teach you the thing firsthand. In which case, you don't need a CFA as long as you have the confidence.
those are idealistic scenarios that
And
doesn't
those are
happen in
idealistic
laws.
scenarios. If not, then go do a CFA works. I mean, it works as in helps you get a foot in the door type of a thing. A CFA is a much cheaper alternative to an MBA actually.
Yeah.
It's a 2.5 lakh rupee alternative to a 35 lakh rupee degree. So
Yeah.
from that perspective can be very interesting.
Yeah. And I also think that, there are some of the courses that we have on M&A and business laws for in-house counsels. They focus even on cyber laws or fintech contracts. They are focusing a lot on the business side of things. So, and these are at a 30,000 range, okay? And you get personal training and things like that, which is not available in a CFA. You get great books in a CFA. So I think that these are some of the things that you can use, and we give you specific guidance on how to go about building your LinkedIn profile, how to network, how to activate your profile, how to reach out to people. So these are some options you can consider. I am answering
Right.
this because you all have been asking contextual questions, so I'm relating this to what is available in the world currently before us that we can consider taking up. Achal has asked, can you tell something about how to be an in-house counsel in a big four like a JP Morgan, Chase, etc.
I mean that would largely relate to these big fours are always hiring largely from law school and from firms, so should be an easy. I mean, basically, as long as you are okay working on contracts or okay working on that side of things,
Yeah,
that
I think they don't
is
hire
fairly
like the
straightforward.
assembly line style, you know, like so they don't hire a lot
Yeah,
of people. So as Subhro was saying, so when the opportunities are not too many, you have to sort of chase the recruiter and make them want you. So
yeah,
you will have to use LinkedIn and sort of understand. So I'll give you an example of the kind of work I did in a corporate law firm when we were, serving big private equity players or investment banks was a lot on the on the side of can we launch this financial product, can we launch that financial product, how does SEBI deal with this, how does SEBI deal with that, and trust me, lawyers have absolutely no clue,
right,
and that's the cutting edge advice that these banks want. And obviously lawyers in the big law firms work on this, so they know about it. Now if you can actually learn those things about how these different fund products, investment products are regulated, and you can talk to somebody face to face who is a senior associate or a recruiting partner. You can send that kind of information even on your email job applications, and you can explain maybe in a 30-second video about any product of your choice and how it's
right.
regulated. Now that can work wonders for you.
I,
Okay,
I
so
actually
that's
wanted to sort of add I mean, it's an anecdotal story, but still goes to show a lot. So when we were at Kalari, I think a lot of, like a couple of us were like thinking what to do next. And one of my peers over there, I mean, Sachin Bansal was starting his new venture at that time. So it's called Navi. So he was starting
yeah,
Navi. And one of my peers over there wanted to work for him. And I mean, I'm very sure Sachin got like 10,000 messages every day on LinkedIn with people asking him, "Can I work for you? Can I work for you?" or emails or whatever. So this guy sent a message with the subject line being, "Can I be the Robin to your Batman?" So I mean, it's very anecdotal. It just shows, creating a differentiator is very important, right? How do you?
yeah,
It can be something as simple as subject line, but you have to create a differentiator, not in a bad way, of course, but in a good
yeah,
way. Somehow try to create a differentiator for yourself.
yeah. Got it. So, any closing questions? Anything else you'd like to
Yeah.
speak about, Subhro? And people have asked if it requires them to take a salary cut to move from law to business side roles.
Depends where you're working.
I think here we should think about per hour salary drawn by lawyers
No,
because
I I would think not in the long term. When like what I do personally, I mean, touch wood, it pays decently. Most business roles nowadays pay fairly well.
but the most important thing, I'm sorry,
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have this temptation to sort of
Sure, sure,
interrupt
please. Yeah,
because
please.
if you get more at a law firm job also, you must remember that 16 hours of work divided by your salary will give you a lesser wage rate per hour than a
Correct.
small pay cut at a business role. The other thing that you all need to think about is that if you are in a business role, the one limitation that lawyers have about being restricted to a particular territory that gets kicked out of the window, which
Right,
means that whenever the world is more open to travel after COVID, you will be able to basically you can be mobile across the world.
right,
Okay, and the third thing, sorry, is that in most other roles other than lawyers, maybe in investment banking also, there are two, three roles. Other than that, if you move into operations and all of that, you will have fixed work times. So you may have an 8-hour
right,
job which gets spilled over into a 10, 11, 12-hour job, but you won't have 16-hour jobs for weeks. It
right,
doesn't go like that, especially if you're not working in India. Okay,
right,
so
right.
that's
Makes sense.
something you got to keep in mind. And if you are getting, instead of 1 lakh, you're getting 75,000 for a fixed work day, I know a lot of lawyers would be willing to jump at those roles. And in fact, that is the reason that because such jobs don't exist, they don't want to be in law. And so keep that in mind.
But I just wanted to point out that most venture capital rules actually pay quite well. In fact,
That is the other side, right?
way more than what law
What
firms,
corporate lawyers get.
maybe double of what a top tier law firm in India pays at an analyst
Yeah.
level, which is at a 23-year-old level. But
Wow.
again, the stupid part that I would again want to point out is money cannot be a determining factor. Please think of it as if, can you do this for the next 10 years of your life? That is the bigger question over here. Will you enjoy doing this for the next 10 years of your life? Everything has money. I'm very sure law firm partners make insane amounts of money.
Yeah.
right? Or I'm very sure senior litigators make, like 10 years into the profession, I don't think any one of us will be cribbing about the money.
Money. Yeah.
It will be cribbing about what journey I've had and what
Correct.
I
Correct.
want to do. And
No, their question I think is more around:
yeah.
do I need to take a big pay cut
No,
to
no, you
come
don't
into
need to
now?
take a pay cut.
Yeah.
Initially, very initially, maybe in the first year, depends where you're joining, sort of subjective.
So there are two roles you have classified, na, Subhro, that if you move
Yeah.
into VC investing and all of that, then there may not be a pay cut, there may be a pay
So
hike.
I'll talk about an interesting role that a lot of VCs are coming up with nowadays.
Okay.
Basically, they call it a research fellowship or like a research associate, research analyst types.
Okay.
Not like, basically it's a level below from the investment team roles.
Hmm.
I would think the salaries would be in the 12 lakhish range. But the thing is, it's a good way to break into the industry. So in the first year, first 1.5 years, maybe you have to take a pay cut, but that pay cut would still pay you enough to make ends meet. It would still pay you as much as maybe a tier 2 law firm, but the bonuses would be non-existent or lower. But I don't think those considerations should come in. It will pay you enough. As long as you don't have a family or like take care of, I think you should be enough.
Got it. So there are two roles you said now. One is be working with a VC, or the second is the operational or other business roles where there definitely won't be a huge pay cut. There may be a little slight smaller one, but later that sort of all covers up.
Yeah.
That is something for you all to know,
all of
that
that.
you will bridge that gap very quickly and you will earn more than enough, more than what's needed to go by. So it's not like, when you move to litigation, the pay cut is crazy. So it's not like that, because these are at the end of the day commercial scenarios, commercial roles that you are in.
Right.
Okay, Rajat, yeah, please go ahead and type your question if you can. Aditya is asking which companies provide research fellowships.
From what I understand, I think Ankur Capital is one which does.
Okay.
Axel is a fund that does. I can send you a list and you can circulate it later.
Great. We'll put it in the group then. That's great if you have any list. Okay, Rajat, what's your question? You can type it down. And guys, quick feedback. You can leave some feedback on the WhatsApp groups also, and you can leave feedback here. You can rate the session out of 10. Sachin's asking, how can we identify and approach venture capital clients? How can startup law firms
not the best person to answer.
Sorry?
I don't think not the best. How do you identify? I mean, there are ways to identify. I don't know.
There is enough online about, because venture capital firms are always on the radar because they keep investing in startups. So there is so much literature around which startups got funded by whom and when. It's a no-brainer. In fact, if you want to learn about these banks, there are published books on how Blackstone grew. You will find it on Amazon, on how Goldman Sachs grew. There's a book called The Partnership, which is on the journey of Goldman Sachs and how it became the #1 investment bank in the world. How it started different kinds of departments. So anyone interested can see that.
So I think Kanishka posted a course by Ashwath Damodar, and I think very apt course if you want to understand how companies.
Okay, great.
Nice course there.
Thanks, Kanishk. Kanishk, did your question on investment banking get answered in the process? If not, let me know.
Rajat, I don't know. Can I voice? He's asking, can he ask the question over voice?
Rajat, yeah, you can raise your hand so your name pops up. Hi, it's popped up. Now let me just unmute you. Go ahead, Rajat.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Hey, Rajat, we can hear you.
Hi. Very nice. Very nice. You have taken everything. So my question basically is about, after lockdown is over, how VC and M&A activities will be taken into the play, because we know that economy is going very down and people are not going to get into a new ventures. And so what do you foresee how the role would be? World is becoming very, very cautious on their own coming things now. VCs and M&A used to be a very lucrative and very fancy kind of a stuff. I think, what is your sense after COVID? What happens?
Okay. Slightly different question, maybe slightly unrelated, but I'll go ahead and answer that. Based on the discussions we have had with like investors around the world, who we speak to understand, because I'm not an expert in this. I mean, there are investors in China, there are investors in the US who give us advice on this. So from what we understand, I think investments will continue, in the sense people need places to park their money. It's as simple as that. You need a place to park your money. Uh, so if you see, the deals in larger startups have actually not stopped. Deals continue to happen. Just that the places where people will invest will get limited, right? The bottom of the pyramid or the middle of the pyramid, of course, will get wiped out. It's a lot of startups at the bottom, or people who are in the middle, who are burning a bunch of money, they might just go out of business. But I think the top will exist as it always has. And money still exists, right? Where does money in venture funds come from? It comes from things like basically university endowments, right? So Howard, let's say, sits on a $20 billion endowment. They give money to 20 venture funds. That money has not gone anywhere. That money is still there.
Pension fund.
Yeah, pension funds. That money is, the value has gone down because the stock prices have fallen, but the stock price will rise.
Okay, so you mean to say
yeah.
it's a new area where you can make more money, so money will start flowing in on venture capital. So it may not be very traditional way, like brick and mortar model, something very unique, something maybe digital, but things will always remain and re-establish and
COVID will not, I don't see that. I mean, there will be changes in terms of how people look at products and how people sort of deal with certain, like education, for example, will change a lot. Like, Zoom might become the new normal, but I don't think the world fundamentally, like investment wise, will change. I mean, the flow of money will sort of remain the same.
Perfect.
So yeah, I hope that.
Great. Thank you very much for answering my question. And also, I think Mr. Agarwal, you wanted to post something on Ashwath Damodaran. So can you post that link so that
Kanish has put it. Kanish has put it. pages.stern.nyu.edu.
Okay, good. Thank you.
Cool.
Kanishk has a question. Any good places to intern virtually during this crisis for someone who is pursuing BBA LLB from an NLU? Ramanuj has been speaking a lot about this in his sessions, but Subhro, do you know anybody? Forget good places to intern, but do you know of people taking virtual interns at the moment?
Again, let me just look around and send you a list. One advice there, do not wait for people to publish it.
Correct.
If you like a place, make a list of 10 places, just reach out to them.
Kanishk, reach out, stand out, and help right now. You can, after 3 months, right now people don't have the bandwidth by what do I call you, employee, intern, what do I call you? But right now, all you have to go is get in their inbox and help them, which I'll help you. But when things are good, you can say, okay, can you give me an internship certificate? It's going to be that simple.
Yeah. Just don't wait
get
for
to
it.
Know people and help them. Offer to help and identify what they may need. Okay, don't wait for them to give you work. This is not a time when you will get a fair opportunity to show your skills. Here you have to snatch the opportunity and help other people.
Right. Cool. Thanks a lot.
Asif is asked last question. Okay, after this questions, you can message questions in the group. Syed Asif Iqbal has asked, how do you see law firms like Cyril Amarchand Mangaldas, which is entering into the space of startups through its incubation center? Do you see anytime soon law firms will invest in a startup? And how can CAs add value in deals? Is it tax matters or any other matters also? Harshal, your question I answered that you can help in a lot of things like valuation, business plan, forecasting, things like that, packaging deals, road shows. Subhro will add if there are any other things.
So on the law firms investing in startups, people already do. Alan Overy has a very, very active incubator, if I'm not wrong.
So lawyers are personally investing. Rich lawyers, wealthy lawyers, senior lawyers invest in startups.
Firms also. I think ANO has a very, very active incubator in London that invests in legal tech startups.
Right. And the reason is that they want to not be, so why an individual may invest is to make the money grow, and why a law firm may invest is for two reasons. One could be just to make the cash grow, but the other reason, which is more important, is that they don't want to lose out on any technological innovation which could fit in well with their business model, so that they can absorb it in-house and then be more innovative. That is one of the reasons why they do this. Thanks, Namit. Aosphere. Got
it. Cool.
Okay. Thank you, everybody. Bye. Thank you, Subhro, for your time. If you have any closing notes, Subhro, you can let us know.
Always, like, the reach out to people bit applies to me also. If there's anything I can help anyone with, feel free. Always happy to get on a call over a Saturday or a Sunday and sort of figure out how to.
Where can people find out more about your group? Lawyers Not Lawyers.
So we have a LinkedIn page, so you can follow us on LinkedIn.
Okay.
So you can find out more about us there. I am on LinkedIn. Feel free to reach out, and always happy to help.
Okay, okay. So LinkedIn पे you can find lawyers not lawyering community. Okay. All
Yeah.
right. Cheers, everybody. Stay safe, stay indoors, and
Yeah.
have a great weekend. See you. Bye.
Bye.